The Giants are interested in who? Kyle Schwarber? Did I read that right? I thought they were all about pitching and defense. Let's talk about what the heck is going on this episode of Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, y'all? I'm Alan Salz, and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network, thanks to people like you, and I'm very appreciative of that. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area, but I live in Sacramento now, and I host a show at Sacktown Sports 1140, as well as emceeing Sacramento Rivercats games. All in all, I'm lucky enough to cover a team I've been a fan of all my life. Today, we are talking about the report that came out from John Morrissey as far as the Giants' interest in Kyle Schwarber. Yeah, you heard that right. Also, they have been in conversation with Zac Gallen, and the fact that they got outpriced, according to Andrew Baggerly, for Cody Ponce. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL and NBA seasons are here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. So I first saw this, and by the way, I want to real quick just lay some things out as we approach the winter meetings. There are going to be situations where, based on whenever I put out the show, something is going to happen. So obviously yesterday we are all waiting around and seeing if a move is going to be made. And I put out the show, I think it was around 2:00, something like that. And Cody Ponce got signed a couple hours later. I saw some people in the comments, when did this show come out? Cody Ponce got signed. Them's just the breaks, right? If I try to wait until nighttime, then nothing could happen. We just don't know. So there are going to be situations where you might catch the show after something has happened. That's just the nature of the beast. With all that being said, let's get right on into it. Again, this was a report that came out after I had recorded the show, and it was from John Morrissey, and he reported it on MLB Network that the Giants are interested in Kyle Schwarber. Now, you can imagine my confusion when I heard this. And by the way, this show in particular is kind of going to tie everything together. There's 3 separate segments, but they're really all rolled into each other, and you'll see as we get on into it, because I was very confused. The pitching and defense that Buster Posey has talked about over and over, not to sound like Marshawn Lynch, but over and over and over and over again, to hear about that, but then see that the Giants are interested in Kyle Schwarber, you can imagine my confusion. And we're also going to talk about what Susan Slusser had to say as far as the Giants feeling more comfortable giving long contracts to position players than pitchers. This all connects to not getting Imai. It all connects to, I guess, Cody Ponce as well. My confusion, number one, is not that you're interested in a position player or not that you're interested in a hitter. It's that you're interested in a hitter that doesn't play a position. I think I saw it was under 10 games that Kyle Schwarber played in left field. I also read that, and I have the write-up for you right here, this is just not exactly where I thought the Giants were going to go. And look, maybe they're just doing their due diligence, but in my opinion, it seems like a waste of time just based on what they've told us. Again, this is going to connect to what Susan Slusser said as far as the Giants maybe feeling like their pitching is in a better spot than a lot of us may have thought they felt like it was, and they want to focus more on the hitting. The defense part of it, I'm not letting them off the hook with, but specifically the hitting, okay, maybe that's the case. So here is the breakdown on Kyle Schwarber, and this is from The Athletic, our Tim Britton extraordinaire. He's been the one breaking all these down. It's easy to forget that Schwarber was once treated as a platoon bat and got non-tendered in 2020. He has since established himself as one of the most consistent, productive hitters in the game. offsetting his low batting average with a high on-base percentage and outrageous power. Schwarber is coming off a career year that saw him hit 56 home runs with a 928 OPS. Only Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and Cal Raleigh had a higher slugging percentage this season. Although he started 8 games in left field in 2025 and has minimal experience at first base, Schwarber has almost exclusively been a designated hitter in the past 2 seasons. He's been with the Phillies since 2022, generating down ballot MVP votes each year. This season, he's among the MVP frontrunners, or he was, while hitting 187 homers, tied with Ohtani for second most in baseball behind Judge. Schwarber turns 33 in March, but his career trajectory has been atypical, and his peak seasons have come in his 30s. He's also respected as a clubhouse leader whose commitment to offseason training has fueled annual improvement at this stage in his career. Okay, right? Best fits, they have Boston, Cincinnati, and Philly. Nobody thought that the Giants would be interested in somebody like, I won't say nobody, but a lot of people, or most people didn't. 5 years, $145 million at 30 years old. This has got to be, this has got to be just some level of, hey, we're checking in. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Kyle Schwarber is a dog, and Kyle Schwarber is one of the best hitters in baseball. But 5 years when he is 33 years old, and I haven't even said the best part. The Giants have a DH logjam, if you will. You already got Bryce Eldridge. You already have Rafi Devers. This is making me start to think, and I don't want to go here. I didn't actually think about this when I was getting this show together. This is making me start to think that Bryce Eldridge might be on the table for an elite pitcher. If they are thinking about bringing in Kyle Schwarber and they really want to just make sure that there are no holes in that lineup, and we do all know that they need to improve pitching, this makes me think that Bryce Eldridge could be on the table. I have no other way to think. You are not going to bring in Kyle Schwarber if you think you're going to hold on to Bryce Eldridge. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. I don't see Bryce Eldridge playing in the outfield. There's been no reports or very little reporting. I feel like Buster would have brought that up at this point. And again, they're talking about defense. You're going to start somebody who has just played first base. I don't see that happening. That is the tinfoil hat approach that I am taking. Those are the cookie crumbs, the trail that I'm following. Now, look, they could be just checking in, doing due diligence. Fine. But if they think we could get Kyle Schwarber out here and get a bunch of splash hits and get everybody rocking and finally have that piece to the puzzle that we're missing. Because think about, I mean, real quick, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. It's just feels like there is a contradiction. But as far as a lineup, that would be a crazy lineup. Willy Adames, Rafi Devers, Kyle Schwarber. You got Matt Chapman. He can hit down at what, 6, 7, 8, something like that. You can go Casey Schmidt, and then you could keep Elliot Ramos at the top if you want. Jung-Hoo Lee, you can see if he's a leadoff guy, or you could throw him at the 9. I think he'd be outstanding at the 9. You could hide Bailey in that 8 seed. So don't get me wrong. This would be a nasty lineup. It's just very confusing to me. And like I said, we're going to get into what Susan Slusser said, and maybe it will help some of the confusion for you. The only thing I can think of is they're going to go the trade route as far as the pitchers are concerned, and they would be willing to listen in on Bryce Eldridge. And what did we say about a month ago? Everybody has a price. There is no such thing as untouchable. Zero such thing as untouchable. Let's get to the other side and keep that conversation going. Zac Gallen and what the Giants might look at doing there as they are prioritizing those shorter deals and a price tag that is more of their appetite. More Locked On Giants coming up. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I have to tell y'all about my favorite jeans, my Doers. Seriously, they've changed my life. Right now, I'm wearing the Performance Denim Slim Straight, and I cannot get over how comfortable these jeans are. I've been reaching for my Doers for everything, running errands, grabbing dinner with friends, even heading to the ballpark because they look great and feel even better. Here's the thing. Doer jeans have 5 times the reach of traditional denim, so you can actually move in them. They're also antibacterial, which means they stay fresh longer, wear more, wash less. And they're made with Cool Max technology that helps regulate body temperature and wick moisture so you stay cool and comfortable as the day changes. Honestly, they feel as stretchy as my favorite joggers, but look like I'm dressed to go out on the town. Doer is all about combining classic jeanswear style with athletic level comfort and performance. It's the best of both worlds. They actually pioneered the original performance denim, blending technical innovation with everyday clothing that looks sharp and feels incredible. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without sacrificing style. Once you try them, they'll be your go-to pair. Trust me. And if you're in San Francisco, check out Doer's store at 567 Hayes Street. Pick up a pair for yourself or grab one as an amazing holiday gift. Mention my promo code LOCKEDONSF in store to get 15% off your first order, or shop online at shopdoer.com/LockedOnSF for that same 15% off. That's shopdoer.com/LockedOnSF. Your new favorite jeans are waiting. So this is the report from Susan Slusser, and here's the quote. I know this beyond a reasonable doubt. They have talked to Zac Gallen, talking about the San Francisco Giants, of course. Zac Gallen is coming off the worst season of his career, which means that his price tag might be a little lower. Now, that's not Susan saying that. That's me. He's 30 years old, and the athletic projection is 2 years, $42 million. So again, these shorter deals, and this is what Susan's been saying, and the Giants, I guess, have been saying that they feel more comfortable going after pitchers on shorter deals versus players on shorter deals. They are okay with these big deals that they have for the Giants or the Giants position players. They just don't want to add on, and if they are going to add on, it's not going to be with pitchers. They think that they can get by without doing that. And here is the write-up on Zac Gallen, 192 innings pitched. And again, he is 30 years old. Nobody saw their stock plunge this past season quite like Gallen, who entered the year in conversation with Valdez and Cease as the best starters on the market. Instead, the 30-year-old right-hander assembled the worst season of his career with an ERA in the high 4s and peripheral stats to match. After years of minor decreases, his strikeout rate plummeted below the league average, and his all-around stuff was down for much of the year. Gallen did put together an excellent August and solid September, and his track record suggests the potential for some rebound for a pitcher still within his prime. That's actually crazy. And by the way, they have Arizona, Baltimore, and Toronto. That's crazy when you look at what Framber Valdez is going to get and what Dylan Cease did get. Now you're looking at 2 years, $42 million. That is quite the dip, my friend. Welcome to the San Francisco Giants. But seriously, I do think that there might be something here with Zac Gallen, just because he probably is due for a rebound, and the Giants are going to get somebody on a possible bargain, just because his market is depleted, and the Giants think, hey, we can get you right. We can work around some things, and we think that we can at least get you closer to what you were. And this is the approach that I feel as if they're going to continue to take throughout the offseason. There are other names that have been thrown out. And like I said, I will get to some of the Blue Jays names because they did add Cody Ponce at 3 years, $30 million. So I'll get to some of those Blue Jays names that Andrew Baggerly kind of lays out for the Giants, since the Blue Jays are not messing around, by the way. The Blue Jays said, we don't like the taste of losing the World Series. But by the way, they should have won the World Series, but they didn't. And the Blue Jays are saying, we're going to do whatever we can. Dylan Cease, Cody Ponce, come on down. We are trying to fill whatever gaps we may have. And obviously Scherzer, another guy who had a down year. He's also just older, right? Zac Gallen's only 30. So there is a huge opportunity for him to turn this around. And really, I look at it like a prove-it deal. Normally, a prove-it deal is 1 year, but it's almost a 2-year prove-it deal. I wish somebody would make me prove something for $42 million, but it's almost as if it's a prove-it deal. He signs it for 2 years. Then at that point, at 32 years old, do the Giants say, all right, now we'll invest, or we'll give you 2 more years? Or at that point, I think that's what we've seen with the Kevin Gausmans, which is not what a lot of fans were happy with. At that point, somebody else swoops in and says, we'll give you a long-term contract. You've proved yourself over the last 2 years. You're only 32 years old. Here's a 4-year, 5-year deal, which is back within the market that Zac Gallen thought that he would have initially. So this is just the type of situation. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Last Chance U. Right, and RIP to Coach Beam out there in Oakland. When I was living in Oakland, I was living down the street, and Laney College, that's a college that I played against when I was at Kenyatta and spent some time there because, like I said, we lived right down the street. But Last Chance U, if you're not familiar, it's a show where these kids, right, some of them are very talented. Some of them are trying to figure out their bodies, and they go to junior college to play football, basketball. They haven't done baseball yet, but I hope they do. Baseball, whatever, and they hope to get a D1 scholarship or a scholarship somewhere to continue their career. And it's almost as if the Giants are treating the back end like Last Chance U. Right? Zac Gallen, depleted market. Come on over to San Francisco. We got you. Right? Max Scherzer, you got 1 more year in you. Justin Verlander, you got 1 more year in you. We don't need a lot at the bottom of the rotation, so we can go about it that way. And maybe they're right. You watch Last Chance U, some of those guys are hits and they're studs, but some of them aren't, and some of them flame out. So it's quite the unique approach, I would say. It's just not what I saw the Giants doing. And some of that prioritization is going to reveal itself very, very shortly. It's starting to reveal itself. And maybe we had this whole thing wrong. On the other side, let's talk about Cody Ponce, who is also headed out of the country to Toronto as the Blue Jays continue to open up their pocketbooks and their wallets to ensure a return to the World Series. And I will get into what Susan Slusser had to say about the Giants' approach and how maybe I had it all wrong. Maybe a lot of us had it all wrong. That's all coming up next on Locked On Giants. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. So a lot of people were confused because, like I said, last night it came out that Cody Ponce, I couldn't believe it personally, but Cody Ponce, the KBO MVP, is headed to Toronto. And we just talked about it yesterday that Cody Ponce was going to get a huge contract as far as the KBO transition is concerned, but not as far as what the other starting pitchers on the market or the top level starting pitchers on the market were getting. Cody Ponce signed for 3 years, $30 million. That's it. 3 years, $30 million. Now, it depends on what your price tag is. You know, I like to bring up the food. If you think something is, if you think let's say a New York strip, right? Maybe it's just a New York strip from your local grocery store. If you think that it should only be $15, $20 and it's priced at $50, obviously a nice steak for $50 isn't expensive. But if you think that steak is only worth $25, $30, then maybe you're not going to want to buy it. And that's what I'm seeing here with the Giants, and everybody's freaking out saying the Giants, and I'm going to defend them a little bit, that the Giants got outpriced, but you got to kind of nuance it a little bit, because it's not that they got outpriced, it's that they thought that Cody Ponce isn't worth $30 million or $10 million a year for 3 years. So here is Andrew Baggerly. Cody Ponce is going to Toronto on a 3-year, $30 million deal that crushed industry estimates. Giants were involved, but market got beyond them. Jays moved quickly to replace Chris Bassitt and Max Scherzer with Dylan Cease and Ponce. Will one or both be SF bound now? So basically, like I said, the Giants are, I think, willing to give up 3 years for $30 million. They just didn't think Cody Ponce was going to get that. And according to Andrew Baggerly, nobody did. So I've made some jokes on social media, and if you follow me at _Styles Files, Styles with an I, you will see those jokes, and it's all jokes. We're just having fun. But yeah, it's not that the Giants don't have the money. They just didn't think Cody Ponce was worth it. It's really that simple. It's that simple. So he's headed to Toronto. We'll see what happens. It's a bit of a gamble, but Toronto's doing the thing where they lost the World Series, and they're just trying to power forward and get ready for next season and fix the taste in their mouth. But it's not ultimately going to be fixed until they get back and until they win the whole thing. But this is how you do it, right? Go out there, spend money, and leave no stone unturned. And they're probably not done, to be completely honest with you. I wanted to kind of transition this into what Susan Slusser was saying, because I found it pretty fascinating. She was going on to say that the Giants, number one, they are not in the business of giving these pitchers long-term contracts. Okay, we understand that. But number two, and we should keep an eye on that for Robbie Ray coming up this next season. Number two, and this is what kind of made me say, okay, that's interesting, is they are really about this life with these young pitchers. And I think they probably feel as if we have so many, somebody's going to work out, right? McDonald, and she went on to say that Landon Roop is going to take a step. I mean, we hope so. We can't say that without a shadow of a doubt. We hope so, but we don't know that for a fact. But McDonald, Blade Tidwell, Hayden Birdsong, the list goes on and on. The Giants just feel like somebody's going to figure it out. That is what I took from what she said. Somebody's going to figure it out. Additionally, she said the pitching, last season, the pitching was good. She said the pitching was fine. The issue was the lineup and the hitting. And that leads us all the way back to the first segment about going after Kyle Schwarber. So if that's how the Giants are approaching this, I still don't understand the defense piece, because you're bringing in another outfielder. That's why the only thing that I can deduce from this is that Bryce Eldridge is available. Bryce Eldridge is available. That's what I'm taking from all these reports. Hitting wise, I think they do believe in who he can be and what he can be, but they might say, if we can get Kyle Schwarber, a free agent, let's think about it, how tough it is for the Giants to get big hitter free agents. If we can get Kyle Schwarber, who we know can hit at this level, we would rather go in that direction as far as the all-in approach than seeing what we have with Bryce Eldridge, when they've already kind of put something in Bryce Eldridge's way with signing Rafi Devers. So if that is more of their approach, we think if they in that building believe that their pitching is in a good spot and one of these dudes is going to figure it out, that more so explains why they would be out on Imai. The Cody Ponce thing, they just thought it was too rich for their blood, but that explains it more. Now, you don't have to agree with it, and I don't have to agree with it, but that seems to be their approach. I did not necessarily tag the Giants in feeling like their pitching was in a good spot. Almost like they don't need a lot. They just need one guy. And you have Andrew Baggerly bringing up Chris Bassitt, who we've talked about, and Max Scherzer. If that's all they think they need, well, you better bring in Kyle Schwarber, because those bats last season, they got hot and they got cold. So that's their approach. I was a bit surprised, but let's just think about this. And I just thought about this off the top of my head. When we had on our guy from Locked On Vols, right? And he was talking to us. And this is why I just continue to say the word contradiction because he was talking to us and we had him on the show, and I asked him about how the Giants were approaching the defense pitching and how Tony Vitello, Eric Kane from Locked On Vols, and how Tony Vitello connected into that. And let's remember what he said. He said, yeah, they're definitely not known for their defense. They're definitely known to bap the ball around, and they have high-level pitching, but defense was kind of optional. So I don't know if the Giants are doing the thing where everybody has to say defense is important, but they don't care as much as what they're saying. And they think, let's go get some hitters now if they're willing to come out here. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I don't know if they have any other tricks up their sleeve. All I know is if you bring in Kyle Schwarber and you pay him $145 million over the next 5 years, you are really limiting yourself in their regard and based on their standards, not mine. It's not my money, but you're really limiting yourself on what else you can do because you still got to figure out right field, unless at that point you could say, hey, we don't really mind that Drew Gilbert can't hit yet because Drew Gilbert is going to play a really good right field, or maybe you move him somewhere else in the outfield and we will make up for it by having Kyle Schwarber. We don't mind that Grant McCray. You understand where I'm going with this. Our defense is going to be good, but we're going to sacrifice the right field position and catching as well. We're going to hold on to Patrick Bailey because we do value his defense. That's why we're bringing in Kyle Schwarber to kind of cover that. Now, you can't play Kyle Schwarber in the field, or you can, but it's going to be seldom. So maybe that kind of creates a new logjam unless you loosen things up. So I thought that these were some big, I guess, cultural ideas dropped where if the Giants are more so interested in hitters than pitchers right now, that changes everything. And if they're looking at Kyle Schwarber, who doesn't play a position, that means they're calling for other players. That means that some of these guys, the Bo Bichette's, guys like that, I know that Kyle Schwarber was a shorter contract projection at 5 years, but that means that the Giants are making way more calls than we initially thought. And that does excite me. Look, contradiction or not contradiction, put out a fun product. That's what I'm about. I'm going to call you out because what you're saying and what you're doing doesn't match. But if you put out a fun team, and if you put out a team that offensively doesn't look like they're swinging wet noodles, then I'm all for it. You got to bang it around if the bottom of your rotation isn't where it needs to be. But if they're just saying one thing and doing another, that's funny to me, and I'm going to call it out. But put out a good product and we'll see what happens. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. Thank you for watching Locked On Giants. Be sure to follow me on social media at @the_Styles with an I. Also, the official Locked On Giants account. And thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the Locked On MLB podcast, where there is no offseason. Sully keeps you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed MLB fan. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, peace.